That's Bassmasters. I'm Buzz Cutler. And Bass, I tell you, I am sure glad that I'm not Donald Rumsfeld right now.
Me too.
Because if you look at it, who's out of a ride? David Ragan out of a ride. David Reutimann out of a ride. What do they have in common?
DR.
DR. Donald Rumsfeld is next. He is the next shoe to drop.
He's out of a ride already. But he was the first shoe to drop.
It's interesting, though, because you look at David Reutimann, you look at David Ragan, similar careers, right? A couple of times almost made the chase. A couple of times, well, more than once, we said these guys are on the verge of a breakthrough, a breakout season. Just you wait and see. But they never quite took that ultimate step. And now they both find themselves out of a full-time Cup ride, it would seem, in 2012. Yep. But can you say that they didn't get their fair shot? It seems like they got plenty of opportunities.
Look, if you compare the two guys, you'd have to say this. David Ragan won a single Cup race. That was at Daytona in a plate race. And he was with a team that was better over the balance of the time in the car. David Reutimann has won 2 Cup races. One was a rain-shortened race at Charlotte. The other not. It was a convincing win at Chicagoland. Both unrestricted tracks, with a team that's less accomplished than David Ragan. So on balance, if I had to pick one of those two guys, I'd probably go with David Reutimann. And I think David Reutimann. Yeah, and David Reutimann is a guy I think which maybe still has some potential upside that we don't totally know about.
But here's the thing. You have the chance to get Mark Martin. You
have to do it.
I mean, come on. Are you going to say, well, no, David Reutimann still has something to prove, so sorry, Mark Martin, future Hall of Famer, we're not going to give you the seat?
No, you're not going to say that. And look, this is about what Mark Martin can bring to the race team. I think in David Reutimann's case, it's about what does the race team need to bring to David Reutimann so we can see what the upside of his talent is. This is about Mark Martin bringing something to Michael Waltrip Racing, which I think he's perfectly capable of doing. So it's a move you can't quibble with. I just feel like I still have some questions about David Reutimann and his ability because we've seen those flashes. So do you not have
questions about David Ragan? Have you pretty much got answers about David? I mean, David Ragan's a different situation because on the surface of it anyway, the reason David Ragan is out of a ride is because of sponsorship. Now, you can say, well, David Ragan didn't do enough on the track to attract a sponsor, to keep his sponsor, but he's losing his ride presumably because the money is going away.
Right. And look, I feel like David Ragan, I'm not saying we know how good he can be and that's the end of the story. I think maybe we don't. But I just feel like we've learned more about him just simply because of the team he was with.
Right. I mean, if you can't compete on mile-and-a-half downforce tracks with Roush Fenway Racing.
If you look at David Reutimann's career, he's run at parity with his teammates the whole time. So it's kind of hard to get a read from either guy on the other guy, right? Mm-hmm. So you know, that's not to say another guy couldn't come in the same equipment and run a lot better than those guys, but it's not like Martin Truex Jr. has outperformed Reutimann by a tremendous amount this year. Their stuff just hadn't been very good. Whereas in David Ragan's case, if you look at the course of his career, he basically, and this year I think he's done better in this regard, but this year, but still, basically he runs behind the big three over there as far as speed on the racetrack goes. So I think maybe with David Reutimann, you still have some questions maybe, but I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to get. This is not a time right now when you get more shots. This is not like money coming into the sport and more rides everywhere. I mean, this is like when you lose your ride, it's like ruh-roh. Yeah. This is not an easy situation.
It's not like Brian Vickers has a ride waiting for him in
nobody, you know, Clint Boyer, God love him, he got himself a sponsor, and he still had a tough time. He couldn't put a deal together with Richard Chilton. He had a freaking sponsor.
Right.
So, you know, it's not easy.
But if your initials are DR,
beware.
Mind your P's and Q's. I'm talking to you, Django Reinhardt. Mind your P's and Q's.
Nice pull there.
Yeah, Django Reinhardt. Because most people would think that's a J, but it's actually D-J-A-N-G-O. Django.
Django was his name-o?
Exactly. Bassmasters, Buzz Cutler, thanks for watching.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.